Could a spark of your love light a fire in me? Just a spark, warm my cold heart. It's a living that breathes.
Hi, this is Pastor Chris, and it is Friday afternoon again. So what that means is we have another primer for you. This week's passage is out of the book of Mark chapter 6 actually. I want to say the end of Mark 6. We're not going quite to the end. We're doing verses 30 down through 44. Now this passage is one of those passages you've probably heard before. It is Christ's miracle where he's going to feed 5,000 or the multitude, depending on which edition of the Bible you're actually reading, what word they choose to use. It's interesting for a few reasons. One is that each and every gospel includes this miracle. It's the only miracle that's included 4 times in the Gospels. And I think one of the reasons is this impressed each and every one of the writers so much that they had to include it when it came time to jot down all of their memories of Christ's ministry. Even with the leading of the Holy Spirit, this is one of those miracles that occurs 4 times in the Gospels. It's amazing. All the same event, of course, 4 different readings. Now, this Sunday we'll be focusing on Mark's reading of it, or Mark's retelling of this historical event. And interesting in that is that he focuses on slightly different things than Luke and John and Matthew, of course. Each of them focus on something slightly different. Mark's, I really do appreciate, however, Mark actually leads in by talking about the fact that he and the rest of the disciples were exhausted, and there's still this huge crowd of people. So Christ, he says, we're going to go off to the side, and you are going to rest, and we are going to eat, and we're going to recharge. But the people just keep coming and keep coming. And so Christ's compassion shows through. He calls them sheep without a shepherd. And so in lieu of that, he pulls everybody aside and begins to teach, because he had this compassion on them. So often in our lives, I think, we have compassion on those around us, and yet we don't want to speak to them or attempt to help them in kind of a verbal way. And that's exactly where Christ starts. Now, it doesn't end there, of course. He begins to teach, and along the way, the disciples basically say, hey, it's getting dark, and we are a long way from a 7-Eleven. All these people have to eat, so you either need to send them home, or we need to figure out what to do about this situation. And so Christ actually looks at them and throws the challenge right back and says, well, then you should probably feed them. At the time, the disciples had to be beside themselves, and they immediately gather up the food they have, and they realize it's not nearly enough. So anyway, Christ goes ahead and says, go ahead and divide them up into groups, and then he blesses the food, and he hands the food out. You probably have heard the story before. When the baskets come back, there's more food after everyone has eaten and had their fill than they began with. I want to compare that this afternoon to the fact that each and every one of us was given a gift. Some of us have the gift of teaching. Some of us have the gift of hospitality, mercy. Your gifts are various. They're not the same as mine. And yours aren't the same as your friends and your family. Yet, when you use them for God, he continues to multiply them. And I think that's the reason that's really stuck with these disciples. Not only did he meet their mental and emotional needs by teaching and explaining the gospel, but he then followed that up by meeting their physical needs as well with just what was given, this pittance of food. Yet, he met all of their needs. Christ wants to do exactly the same thing in your life, meet all of your needs. And if you're already a believer, and you're already attempting to follow Christ, those abilities he's given, he's going to multiply in your life as well. So I have a challenge for you this Sunday. I hope you can make it to church. But if you can't, I'll give you the challenge right now. And it's not even complicated. It's an internal challenge, and that is when Christ asks you, when the Father asks you, when the Holy Spirit implants upon you a thing you have to do that seems impossible. Do you pick up that challenge and say, thank you, multiply this in my life? Or are you scared of it? Have to admit, I go back and forth. I love you all very much. Thanks for hanging out with me on Friday. We'll see you Sunday. Our service starts at 11 right here at Christ Central. If you can't worship with us, find a place to do it. God bless.